My name's Paul Withers, and this is an introduction to the OpenLog Logger project on OpenNTF that I've just released. OpenLog's been around for ages, thanks to Julian Robichaud, and even predates XPages quite considerably. Matt White created OpenLog XPages server-side JavaScript script library in the days of 8.5.0 in TaskJam. And then a couple of years ago, with the help of Nathan Freeman, doing a bit of refactoring of the code that I'd pulled out of the Java class, we created a Java implementation for XPages in XPages help application. So this builds on that Java class to give a simple implementation that can be called from Java or from server-side JavaScript, and we'll also catch any uncaught errors on the XPage and log those out to OpenLog as well. But it's not just code that can be in an NSF, it's also been packaged up as an OSGi plugin so it can be deployed server-wide. And also the file path of the NSF that you want to log to can be defined in the xsp.properties on the NSF or on the server. It can also be defined in the notes ini. That'll get used if it can't be found in any of the xsp.properties. And it can also be, there's also a default of OpenLog.nsf that can get used as well. So it's quite a considerable implementation. Also, any calls from server-side JavaScript in the rendered property, for example, which gets triggered multiple times during a page partial refresh. Unlike any of the other implementations, this will only log it out once. So it's cutting down on the amount of code that's pushed out to OpenLog. So let's just have a look at a few examples of it. So here's an onload. It's got an error in the code, and we get that nice useful explanation of error while executing JavaScript computed expression. Which one, of course. But if we skip across to OpenLog, then we can see that error has been logged. Now also, if it's redirecting to one of those error pages, I'm actually logging out the page that the error occurred on, not the error page, which is very useful. And if we jump all the way to the bottom, then we can see that there was an error on the test1 component on that X page in the value property, and it was on line 1. And the error was unknown member get XSP property in Java class com.paulwithers.openlog.OpenLogItem, and we've got the line logged out there. We've also got the full stack trace. This can look quite scary, but here in one of those uncaught exceptions, we've got the caused by place, and we can see that we've got the full stack trace of where that was getting called, and it was in the get value of a UI output, which is a computed field, when it was trying to convert that value. So we've got lots of information there. If I just go back to my home page, then on the caught error, this is where I've got try-catch blocks. I've got a number of them. So we've got some accessed from server-side, this was from server-side JavaScript. So we're seeing that, and I'm actually logging out which I'm writing in there which method it is, because for caught errors we can't actually identify which property on that control the error occurred on. We can see the control is input text 1. We can see it's an error on getXP property again, and we can see it's on line 4, and line 4 is this line here. So we can see the information, and we've got the same thing on the rendered property, and the same thing also on the value property. So that's on the log event. Sorry, no, that's on the log error, because that line is going into the add error. I've also got add event there, and those are the events that are logged out. So again, we're capturing which component that error is, that event is logged on, and the message that's being logged out is rendered event, value event, and we've got the full stack trace again for that as well. With those errors, they'll always come in the after phase of the phase listener. This is because, and it's in the render phase here. It's in the render response phase, just before everything's pumped out to the browser. Everything's queued up and written out in that one phase. Now the validator is a loaded property there. So when I click on this button, we'll get errors thrown again, but this time not for the validate required, because that was loaded, so that won't get recalculated at this point. We'll get the button click event instead, and also the rendered and the value event, and we get 3 errors again, 1 for each of those sections. So here's the rendered error, here's the button error, and here's the value error. So there's some quite extensive bit of functionality there. Calling it from server-side JavaScript, we've got total flexibility here, right from the very basic of OpenLog bean.add error with the exception and the components. So in the try catch, we've got an example there. You can add a severity, a unit of the document that this relates to. We can pass additional errors in additional messages. So this is the equivalent of the log error X. And the add event, we've got the various ways of calling that as well. So there's a lot of flexibility in how that's called. You don't have to add in all the parameters. And it's fully documented with full details. The Java, you've pretty much got all the options that have been there since it was implemented in XPages help application, but I did notice there was a problem with log error X, which has been fixed. So how's this implemented? Well, we can see here in the xsp.properties there we've got those 2 settings. It's really this package here in com.paulwithers.openlog. That's the main package. So I'm going to implement that into this personal reading log database. So if I just copy that, and you can also import it in as well. So actually let's copy the whole of that web content source folder. Now you'll see that here it's actually at a higher level. This is because it's been enabled as a source folder. So we just paste it into web content WebINF, and it will sit down here. Now we need to enable that as a source folder in the database we've copied it into. Sounds complicated, it's not. Right click, build path, use a source folder, and it gets moved up here. That's all there is to it. The other thing that we need to do is in the faces config, we need to tell the database to implement the phase listener from server-side JavaScript and the manage bean. So we copy that code, go to the faces config again under web INF in the target database and paste it. Now the only challenging bit here is to make sure that you paste it outside of the autogen bit, because anything that's there will get overwritten when the project is built. So that's actually implemented it for the database. Now this is a database where I've got a lot of, well, not a lot, I've got a few calls to OpenLog already. If I go to the script libraries, you'll see I've got OpenLog XPages in there. I've used this. I've used Matt White's implementation. So replacing that may sound like a hugely daunting task. It's not. Thanks to the search and replace. So usually you'll have something consistent like log.log error e.toString. So I've selected the database here, so I'm going to do a search through those selected resources, and I'm going to do a replace. So that's found all the references. There's a number of references in custom controls and local. You don't need to worry about local. Those are the Java files that get created when you save an XPage or a custom control. So you don't have to worry about that. Just replace it with OpenLogBean.addError e, this. That's just shortcut for passing in the error object, and this will, if it's a value, be the component. So we can just preview that, and as I said, anything in local can just untick that. We don't need to worry about that. That'll get rebuilt anyway. So let's just look through the other ones. This is in the value property. That's fine. That'll work perfectly. Again, the value property. The value property again. And again, the value property. If it was in an event, then we'd just change that to this.getParent. That's fully documented in the database, so that's fine. Okay, and that's done. Now let's just look for the log.log event. It's searching through the workspace this time. Let's just go back and just select that resource and search again. No, I still did it to search. I want to search on selected resources, not on the workspace. Yep, that's great. So there it's going to be OpenLogBean.log event. Sorry, add event. So let's just preview those. So the only thing that we're probably going to need to change there is here. It's passing a string plus a number. That's probably going to fail in the code because the method just expects a string. So you just need to go in afterwards and put in that text around that. And of course we don't need to worry about the script library. And that's done. That's our application migrated to use the new OpenLog XPages. All of probably 3 minutes. Might need to go back and do a bit of tidying up afterwards, but it's not hugely difficult. You can do that search again for OpenLog bean. Helps if we select a scope. And we've got all of those entries, so that one with the log event that we needed to add in that text around. Did that do it? Yes, yep. And there was another instance of that. There it was. Helps if I type correctly. And that's done. Not difficult at all. Now let's look at the implementation of it on the server. So what we're doing with this is it's exactly the same process as installing an extension library. This is, after all, an OSGi plugin, which is an extension library. So we go to our update site database and import a local update site. So you point this to the site.xml that's in the plugin that comes with the system. Okay, and there we've got our OpenLog. So if we look at the plugins, there we've got the OpenLog plugin. The other step is then just to run restart task HTTP on the server. That's the proper method to actually do a full shutdown and restart of HTTP, as documented in Chapter 2 of the Extension Library, XPages Extension Library book. And that's now installed on the server. The other step, in order to actually use it within an application, we need to install it in Designer as well. So we go to File, Application, Install, search for new features, point it to that update site folder. I've actually extracted it here, so I can point it to that folder, select the features to install, accept the terms, and because it asks us again, install the plugin, and then restart Notes and Domino. Hugely difficult. And now we have to wait for Notes to start up, which has actually taken, which will take a little bit longer than the whole of the import process. So now we're ready to actually use that in an application. And as with the extension library, it needs to be enabled for a database. So again, I've got a database ready for that. So it's this holiday tracking database. When you drag and drop a control from the extension library into your database, it automatically enables that. That doesn't happen with this kind of a library because there isn't a control to drag onto the page. So you just need to go to the application properties in 8.5 or the XSP properties in 9. In the application properties, it's on the advanced tab. In the XSP properties, it's on the page generation. And we just need to enable com.pullwithers.openlog log.library.starterLibrary, and that's then enabled, and it's ready to go. That's all that you need to do. You can then do again your search and replace with the selected properties. So our log.log event, we've got a few references to it here. So that's the log.log error, so we need add error. Preview that. As before, ignore the local folder. Just step through those. So here we've got one on a rendered property. Here we've got one on an action. So it's not going to let us change that bit of code here, so we just need to make a note of that one. That's on a value property, so that's fine. That's a value property, so it's on this in view edit. Just run that through. We've still it's now removed those entries from that search pane because I've got it to set it to automatically refresh. But we can look for OpenLog bean and go to that in view edit, and I think it was the second entry. Yes, it's in an action. So this .get parent, because there is the event handler. We want to get the component which is the parent, and that's enabled it for that database. So that's two databases enabled, one using the OSGi plugin, one using an NSF, and all in not very many minutes.